All right, so let's get underway. So I'll start with a little bit of introduction. My name is Tamás Holic. I'm the CTO at VirtDB, which is a spin-off company of Star Schema Limited, which is a BI, big data consultancy firm based in Budapest, Hungary. And 2.5 years ago, they decided to separate their consulting business from product development, and that's why they founded VirtDB, which focuses on product development, especially for SAP systems. So VirtDB is an SAP application partner, and our add-ons are certified by SAP. Both companies are Tableau partners as well. So let's see what the problem is that we're trying to solve. So I'm sure you know that getting data out of SAP ERP systems is very problematic because there are no standard tools. SAP wants to keep its data in their ERP systems. So the traditional ways of solving data extraction needs are the following. First of all, the good old manual export to Excel. So we've seen a lot of companies doing this, and then even if they have the latest and best BI tools like Tableau, they still feed it with Excels manually exported from SAP. The next option is to do custom ABAP development, SAP development, but that's slow, expensive, and it will always require IT involvement. If you want to change something, if you want to add the new field, if you want to change the data types or whatever, you will always have to call your developers. And of course, there are a lot of third-party tools, but many of them have different problems, either performance issues, or they're limited to using tables and views as data sources, or the process does not stop when the data is extracted. You still have to do some transformations or mapping or change of data types manually. And also licensing is a hot topic these days. Not all of them are license compliant with regards to the SAP license agreement. So let's see our solution. It's called the Data Unfolder, VirtDB Data Unfolder, and that's an enterprise level solution to manage your data extraction needs. It will work with classical R3 based SAP systems and also the latest S/4HANA systems as well. So all it needs is a NetWeaver based ABAP system. So it can be ECC 6.0 or HR, extended warehouse management, whatever. And in regards to the target systems, we're also flexible. We can push data to the cloud, to traditional and new generation databases, and directly to BI platforms as well. So this slide is about the high-level architecture. You can see that the core component is installed here on the SAP server that's written in ABAP. This is certified by SAP. And having this installed in the SAP application server has quite a few benefits. First of all, we're not limited to using tables and views as data sources. We can reuse your business logic, basically your custom and standard SAP reports, queries, and quick views. You can also notice that we have a data distribution engine here that is written in .NET Core. It can be deployed basically anywhere to any Windows or Linux-based machine, either on-premise or in the cloud. And that's optional. So the ABAP component can export your SAP data to files, to either to local or to network storage. However, that's not enough for you. You want to directly push the data to, let's say, Tableau, SQL Server, or Hadoop. Then you can install this data distribution engine, and that will transform the data to the specific format of the target system and push it or publish it to the target system. So another use case is besides the use case when an SAP user logs in and executes a report and pushes the data to Tableau, for example, is to use the SAP Job Scheduler. So that's how you can set up periodic extractions. The next slide is about an important thing. It's called indirect access related licensing risks. A few years ago, there was a famous case between SAP and Diageo. SAP has sued Diageo in the United Kingdom because during the license audit, they found that they haven't paid named user license fees for almost 6,000 Salesforce users. And then, of course, Diageo hoped that they were using SAP PI as a middleware, and maybe that would help them in this case, but no, it didn't. So the court in the United Kingdom favored SAP. So Diageo had to pay a fine with almost 60 million British pounds. So this is now an important thing to consider when you're doing SAP data extraction. Here you can see a comparison between the classical architecture on the left side, when BI tool logs into SAP, optionally through a third-party connector. And in this request, often companies tend to use one single service user or technical user. However, if during the license audit, SAP recognizes that that's used by dozens or hundreds of BI users, because that service user logs in, I don't know, 100 times each minute, then they will demand you to pay user licenses, SAP user licenses for your BI users as well. However, on the right-hand side, you can see that this is absolutely not the case. We are installed on the SAP server. We're pushing the data and not pulling it. It means that there's no external access going to your SAP server, and you can only use the product with your existing licensed SAP users. So let's jump into the system and show how it works. Okay, so this is an SAP ERP system, ECC 6.0 and Enhancement 7, but it doesn't actually matter. Everything works the same way. So I will now execute a standard report called MM60, that's transaction code. This is the selection screen. I execute, and then I get a list. This list is, it looks simple, but it's combined from 8 different database tables by the ABAP program code, the business logic that is implemented by SAP. So if you want to have the same data in an external system, then you have to find out which tables this report reads, how it combines them together. Then you have to export all tables one by one and rebuild the business logic outside of SAP. And of course, this is a very slow, complicated, and expensive process. And the end result might not exactly be the same. So you can never be sure that it's the same as the original SAP report. So VirtDB offers a much better solution. So I will leave the transaction now, and I turn on the administrator mode for VirtDB. That means that after this is turned on and you execute any SAP report which has a list kind of output, no matter if it's custom or standard, you will have one extra button here, Datasource Settings. And if you press that, then a pop-up window appears where you can set a lot of different options. I will keep all the defaults now. I like to just highlight that Tableau is the default UI component now. So I press OK. You can see that the list is the same, but we still have another button, which is the VirtDB Data Unfolder button. And this drop-down menu contains most of the features of the product, and this is now available for all SAP users in the system who have the necessary authorizations. So because we've connected it with Tableau, I mean, we set up this data source with Tableau as a target, the first menu item is Display in Tableau Desktop. And if I press that, then the data is sent to our data distribution engine, which converts it to a Tableau data extract. It's downloaded to my laptop where I have Tableau installed, and it's opened automatically. So basically with 2 clicks, I can move my SAP report data to Tableau. You can see that metadata is also processed. It means that numbers are numbers, dates are dates, strings are strings. You don't have to do any further actions at all. So you can start to analyze your SAP data very quickly and easily. This is the first use case. When you log in as a regular SAP user, you execute your reports that you're working with since years, and now you have one extra button that allows you to push data to a BI tool. So this is self-service BI. Basically, you don't need any IT involvement. So you need to set up that report as a data source once only, and after that, all your users can push that button to analyze the data. Naturally, the next step is to further enhance this dashboard, because you can see that the material type and group are simple codes, and nobody understands that unless you work with SAP every day. We also summed up a price, but prices can be in different currency, and that's problematic. You cannot add up euros and dollars and so on. And maybe you want to add extra fields. So let me show you how easily you can do that using VirtDB. If you go back here to the SAP report and choose field category extension from this drop-down menu, then a pop-up window appears where you can see all the fields of the current report. And you can also add extra fields very easily. So let's solve problems one by one. First of all, we need the text for the material type in the group. You may notice that on the right-hand side, the program identified that a lot of fields have some sort of a text source. It can come from domain values, text tables, function modules. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to know it. You just tick this checkbox in the read text column. And if you tick that, then 2 extra fields appear. Let's press OK. You can see that the list is refreshed. And next to the material type, now we have the corresponding text. And again, next to the material group, we have the corresponding text. Let's go back to the field category extension and make a currency conversion. So I select the price field, which I want to convert, add the new field, and here I choose currency conversion. You can see that again, something new is added here. So let's filter for currency conversion fields. It's pretty easy to set up. So here you define the amount field that's populated automatically, just like the currency reference field. And now you can either choose an exchange rate field if you have that in your report, or any date field from the report or the system date. And of course, you can define the target currency to which you want to convert everything. And finally, I will add an extra field from a database table. So maybe I want to add something from the material master because this is a material report. So next to the material number field, I want to add a field from the database. Because I've selected the material number field, the program proposes table Mara, but of course here you can choose any table from the SAP system which has a one-to-one relationship to the material number, but this table will be fine for me. The next step is to choose which fields you want to add to this report. I will pick the industry sector. Maybe that's very important for my dashboard. Finally, I have to do a key field mapping between the fields of the report and the table I want to read. This is very simple in this case because we already have the material number in the report, and that's the key field of this table. So this is so simple. I press OK, and now I have the industry sector here as well. Maybe I want to add the text as well. So I again tick this checkbox and see what happens. The list is refreshed again. Now I have the industry sector along with the text. I have the 2 text fields, and if I scroll to the right, you can see the prices and the prices in euros. So let's check what happens now if I press display in Tableau desktop again. Basically the same thing. Whatever I currently have in my report is converted to a Tableau data extract. It's downloaded to my laptop, and now I can create a much better dashboard because first of all, I can use the prices in euros, I can use the texts of my codes, and I can also add the industry sector text, which was not in my report, in my original report. So that's the data preparation capability of the product. Naturally, you have to do this only once. So if I leave the transaction, I can show that to you. I leave the transaction, I execute it again, then I will still have the same extra information added dynamically. And that means that if you change the industry sector text tomorrow, then you will have new text tomorrow, of course. So this extra data is not stored anywhere. Let's jump back to Tableau, because naturally, once you're done with a nice looking dashboard, then you want to share that with your colleagues and you want to make that refreshed automatically. So in that case, you go to Tableau server, publish the data source, the workbook, and so on. That's pretty standard. I'd like to show how you can create a periodic extraction from SAP. So remember, we're still working with an SAP report and not a single table. And now I will choose Tableau server and schedule extraction. First of all, the program notifies me that I forgot to select the selection variant on my previous screen, so now I can do that. And now I can enter the Tableau specific details with regards to the extraction. So if you have a multi-site Tableau server, then you can enter the site ID. You can enter a data source name like MM60 Tableau project. It can be the default. The output mode controls if you want to have a new Tableau file, either TD or Hyper, created every time the job runs, or you want to append to the existing file, or you want to overwrite. And the upload mode is pretty similar. You can choose not to upload the files to the server, or if yes, then you can overwrite or append the data source on the server. Once you define this and press continue, you're taken to the standard SAP Job Scheduler, where the default job name is the name of the report, and then I can enter Tableau. I press the start condition to define when to start this, so you can specify another job, an event, a specific date and time. You can set this up as a periodic job. You can run it hourly, daily, or even every 5 minutes. It's up to you, the amount of the data, the business requirement. Naturally, I will now execute this immediately. So I press send, press save, and press save here again. So now I get a success message that the job was scheduled successfully. So let's see what happened. I execute SM37, which is the standard SAP job monitor. And now I should see the job. It's active. Let me jump to our Tableau server. Default, that's fine. Data sources. Let's see if this is, that's finished. So based on the job log, you can figure out what happened. I think the important thing is down here below. We're uploading the data to this Tableau server. So the job is finished. Let's see what we have here. Sort by modification time. Here we go. This is the job that was just published from SAP using a scheduled background job. So naturally, if you have any workbooks connected to this data source, those will be refreshed whenever the SAP job runs. So if it's daily, then daily. If it's every hour, then every hour. All right, so basically that was the Tableau part that I wanted to show. And now I will show you another use case. So you've seen that we can export reports, but now I will show you how to export tables. For that, we can use the VirtDB mass data extractor. This is part of the Data Unfolder solution, but this allows you to export tables and views. So let me select variant KNA1 full. Here you enter the table or view name that you want to extract. Here you define the target system. which will be a SQL server, and then the table name that shall be created on the SQL server. So as the next step, I will demonstrate the delta handling functionalities as well. So that's why this is the name of the table. Once you press schedule extraction, then again, you're taken to the SAP Job Scheduler, and then I can enter full, because this will be full extract. All fields, all rows will be extracted. Again, I set the start condition immediate. Let's start, and then the job is scheduled. So let me start the SQL Server Management Studio, where we will log into the database and see what happens. So this is our SQL server. Here we have quite a few databases. And now let's jump back to the job monitor. Okay, I have an update, that's great. So this should be finished pretty soon. Okay, so again, let's check the job log. 20,000 records were exported, and we also have an application log with a bit more details. So this must-data extractor can process data in chunks or packages. So the first node of the log contains the overall log, and the second one is per package. So you can see that basically we're inserting the data into the SQL Server table to temporary tables, and if every temporary table is populated successfully, then finally it's merged into the target table. So let's see what we have here. Let's go to tables, and this is the table that we just created. So regarding the columns, you can see that the field names are coming from SAP. The data types are matched, so again, dates are dates, numbers are numbers, and so on. Primary keys are set. We have extraction date time field. And of course, if we take a look at what's inside, then you will see the customer master here. It's important to emphasize that this table does not have to be there. It's created by our data distribution engine. Also create a view on this, and the big difference is that instead of the 5-character long abbreviations, you will have the text in the logon language as the column headers. So if you use Tableau or Power BI or any tool to connect to the SQL Server view, then you will have the text as column headings instead of the German abbreviations. All right, so the next step would be to show you how the delta handling works. So for that, I will select another variant. We're again extracting data from the same table. But now in the middle, we've ticked this ready button to use the change documents. So in general, you have 3 options here. You can do no increments, and then you have full extraction. You can use the dynamic variant feature of SAP. That's pretty standard. So it means if you have a date field or a date and a timestamp field in your table, which you can use to identify the deltas, then you can define those fields, and it will be populated automatically with the system date and time when the job runs. However, there are some tables which do not have fields like that, like the customer master, and in that case, you can use the change documents. So that's a standard SAP feature to do logging of table changes. So let me navigate to transaction SCDO, where you can see the change document objects, and the debit is the debitor is the customer object. And if you take a look at that, then you can see that the KNA1, one of the customer master data tables, is part of this. So all changes are logged there. So let's make a change for customer 1000. And here I change the fax number to 123. I press save. Okay. And now here in the master data extractor, you can see that we use the change documents. And also this is pre-populated with the standard SAP dynamic variant feature with the current date and time. So now if I schedule an extraction, delta, and save, then only one record shall be exported. So let's see what happens. The standard tables are red, which contain these logs. So you might have heard about CD, HDR, there's a change header, and the CD POS table, which contains all the details about the new value, old value, and so on. So these are the standard tables in which change documents are stored. Okay, so now we have the delta. And let's check the job log. Oh, that's pretty simple. I think we should, yeah, there's one recorded, exported. So if we go back to SQL Server, then you can see that this was the fax number of customer 1000. And if we execute again, then customer 1000 should have new fax number. So SQL Server is very good at handling deltas because it can either insert or update certain records in the target table based on the primary key. So this is what we recommend. There are some BI platforms which do not support sophisticated delta handling, and in that case, it's a good idea to have a SQL Server in between. Export SAP data from there using scheduled background jobs. Optionally, use the change documents for identifying deltas. All right, so the next thing that I'd like to show is exporting to plain files, CSV files. So for that, I will use another variant, VBA B1 Vimo. Yeah. So we will now export a sales document item table to files, to actually CSV files. Here you can choose JSON, Excel, and CSV, some others. And again, we will schedule the extraction. So this one, start right now and save. With regards to the destination, we have a transaction called /n/vdd/file customization. Here you can see that this is our target. File 1 was selected, and here you can define the download directory. So this is now a local folder on the SAP application server. If you want to download the data to a network drive, then you can share that drive on the target machine and mount it in the SAP server, so it will look, or it will see it as a local folder, but actually it's a network folder. Here you can define the column names, if you want to have the technical names or descriptions or both. You can set the field separators, date format, decimal separator, and so on. By default, the file names are generated based on the job name, job number. You can override that using these fields. You can decide to have header or not in the first line. So these contain the settings, and let's see what happened. So you can see that we have one more finished job. That's the extract one thread CSV. So let's check the job log. Records are exported. So let's see how it looks. Let's log into this server. Here you go. So now you can see that we have different files here. We have some files for the previous customer master extraction. So here we have the one that we've just exported. The first file is a metadata file. So you can see the field name, description, data type, length, and so on. You can use this for any purpose you wish. Here we have the log file, which is basically the same as the log in SAP. Here we have a file, which contains the file name which was created when the process is finished. So there are some middleware which uses flag files to trigger copy of CSV files, for example. And naturally, here we have the data. So this is the customer master table, the sales order document item table VBAP. All right, so the next step would be the automatic parallel processing. That's what I'd like to show to you. So I will execute transaction /VDB/GenVar, which is used for generating variants. And here I again choose variant VBAP test. This report helps you to break up your data set into multiple packages or chunks and helps you to automatically schedule parallel extractions. The process ID is the identifier of the whole data extraction process. You can set this to anything you wish. You need to create a simple report. I will show you why. Basically, you need to add the selection criteria, one single field, which will be used to create the intervals, the packages. The first field of table VBAP is the document number, so that's what we will use to create the intervals. And all the variants which will be storing the interval selection criteria will be stored for this report. You have to define which table you want to process, which field should be using used to break up the data, and then selection criteria name in the report. And then let's go to change mode. Okay, here you enter how many intervals you want to create. Now let's create 10 intervals and press execute. So now you can see that table VBAP contains almost 25,000 records, but only 15,000 are unique. So based on the first key field, you have 15,000 records. This happens because the second field is a position number, and one document might have multiple positions. And the program automatically generates intervals. So you can see that the document number should be basically empty, and 5946 for the first interval, that's V1. The second should start from 5964 until 6963, and so on. And these are semi-open intervals. So no matter how your number ranges are set up, if you create a new document, it must fill into one of these intervals. Of course, at the end, you will have the last interval should be the document number is higher than the highest, which is currently in there. So here you have a quick calculation and a reselection from the database to make sure that everything is perfectly fine. You can see we have 10 almost identical intervals. Naturally, other tables have different key fields. So if, for instance, if the company code is the first key field, then intervals like this would not be the same size, but then you can use the same report to break up one interval into multiple smaller intervals based on the next key field. In that case, you just simply have to enter the master variant here, which contains, let's say, much more records than all the others, and then define another, the second key field, and then the program will break that up into, again, as many intervals as you prefer. So let's see how the data extraction works. We have 10 intervals generated. So if I go to the master data extractor and select the VBAP 3 threads demo, you can see that now we refer to the process ID. We define how many parallel threads we want to use. So this is important that it's not necessarily the same as the number of intervals. So you might allocate 3 background work processes from SAP to process these intervals, but you might have more, let's say 10. We're exporting to a file, CSV, and now same thing happens. We do a background job. like this. Start condition. Well, I will not set the start condition now. I just press save and go to the job monitor. So here you can see that this is the main job that will schedule all the parallel processes. So now if I release it and refresh, then you can see that 3 jobs are triggered. If I keep on refreshing, whenever a job is finished, the main job will schedule the other one. So there are always 3 parallel processing doing the extractions. So you can see that it's finished. And if you compare the runtime to 1 thread and 3 threads, then you can see the reduction. That's considerable, close to linear. Of course, this depends on the data amount of data and your hardware and so on. But in an ideal situation, this can be linear. All right. Naturally, if you go to the folder where you extract, then you can see that all the files are here. Metadata, the log files, the data files are separate CSV files. So that's the way how parallel processing works. All right. So at the next step, I'd like to show you the monitor of the data distribution engine. So you can see that this is installed on-premise on a Windows machine, and here you can see the details of our data extraction jobs, which are not going to CSVs, but which are going through the data distribution engine. So you can see that here we made the KNA1 extract jobs, the Tableau uploads, and so on. And if you click on one, then you get some extra information. All the log files, you can download the output file, the input file, the log files, error CSVs, or all job data at once. So this helps you to monitor your data distribution engine at the load, and also helps you with identifying problems or errors. So I think we're pretty close to the end of the webinar. Let me jump back to the webinar screen and stop sharing. So the next, oh, sorry, let's jump back to sharing because I just forgot to go back to the presentation where we have a quick recap about what we have seen. So compared to our competition, we have some great features. So it's not necessary or not mandatory to set up a new server during the installation. So if you're fine with CSV files, you don't have to set up any external servers. Of course, if you want to have the data distribution engine and publish data to Tableau, to SQL Server, to Hadoop, and so on, then you have to set it up. We're pushing the data instead of pulling it, so that's very important because of SAP licensing. We can use standard and custom reports as a data source with all the metadata, and none of our competitors can do that. We can launch Tableau and other different BI tools with one single click from the SAP user interface. So that allows you self-service BI. You can very easily add new fields to standard or custom SAP reports without coding. You can schedule the background jobs using this standard SAP Job Scheduler, so you don't have to teach your IT department a new scheduler, an external scheduler. You can do delta extractions based on the change documents very easily. We have the efficient mass data extraction program, which can limit the maximum memory consumption of the process due to parallel processing as well. And also we can automate the parallel processing. So you don't have to break up your big tables to different ranges or intervals manually. That can be done automatically by VirtDB. So we have 4 more minutes, as this webinar was planned for 45 minutes. Let me now jump back here, disable screen sharing. And if you have any questions, then please enter it in the chat bar. Meanwhile, I'll add a poll. So if you have a minute to give some feedback, would be very happy. And if you have any questions, then just please let me know. Yeah, memory consumption setup. Let me share the screen again. So that's part of the mass data extractor. Here you have a processing options box, and there you can define a package size, which means how many records will be processed at once. That means even if you have 100 million records in your table, not all of them will be read at once and overload your SAP system and run out of memory or timeout, but only 100,000 records will be read at a time, processed, and once that's finished, then the next package is processed, and so on. So this is how you can limit the maximum memory consumption. All right, if there are no further questions, then I'd like to jump to the last slide, where you can see our contact information. You can get in touch directly with me at tomasz@virtdb.com. If you go to our website, then you can see quite a few use cases with screenshots, videos, and an explanation about typical use cases of our add-on. Let's check back to see if there are other questions. All right, then I'd like to thank you very much for your time today. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you soon, and I wish you a nice day. Thank you. Bye bye.